Hi everyone, welcome to the show. This is Chamath Palihapitiya. He was an early senior executive at Facebook. He is invested in companies such as Yammer and Slack.
Survive ended up becoming worth 10 times what the current market value is. And I think that that's still possible with these crypto projects. But I'd say 90% of them are probably going to start to blow up next year.
What do you got, Chamath?
Well, I guess I'm fading you guys, and I'm also fading implicitly Friedberg's pick of Stripe. But my biggest business loser for 2022 is Visa and MasterCard and traditional payment rails and the entire ecosystem around it. So I think that this is the year you can put on what probably will be the most profitable spread trade of my lifetime, which is to be short these companies, and that anybody that basically lives off of this 2 or 3% tax and be long, well thought out Web3 crypto projects that are rebuilding payments infrastructure in a completely decentralized way. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that what you say won't also happen, both that Stripe will have an incredible IPO and that a lot of these scammy crypto projects will go to zero. However, if you read the white papers of these crypto projects and you systematically put together a framework, I think you can be long those and you can be short Visa, MasterCard, because I think this is their peak market cap.
And for those of you who don't know, fading and sports betting, taking the opposite side of a bet, taking the opposite team, I guess.
Man, Visa's market cap is $500 billion, huh? It's incredible.
It's a completely contrived duopoly that
and what does
doesn't need
Visa
to exist.
mean to a young person?
And MasterCard's almost $400 billion, so they're $1 trillion combined market cap.
By the way,
That's incredible.
you have to understand that the canary in the coal mine here is pretty significant. The most important thing is Amazon. Earlier this year, Nick, maybe you can post this, decided to just shut Visa off in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Bing.
Amazon is not going to do something like that, in my opinion, unless it's a test of what they can do all around the world. And again, going back to this idea of arming the rebels, there really is no need today for all of these small businesses to sit on top of Visa, MasterCard, and Amex rails. It's unnecessary. And so it'll probably get developed in the developing world first. This is why I think, focusing in markets like Nigeria, to me, are way more exciting than talking about these fading Western European countries. Who cares?
Right.
This is where this stuff will happen. It's not to say that those other companies can't, trundle along for a while. But when I say, we'll look back in 10 years and their market caps will be materially lower, anybody in those traditional infrastructure and rails versus anybody in this new infrastructure and rails it will look like a no-brainer 10 years.
Do you consider the buy now, pay later companies like Affirm and Upstart or whatever? I don't know if Upstart fits in that category, but some of these buy now, pay later businesses as being the alternative to the traditional payment networks, or do you think that it's a different business?
No, right now, I think what buy now, pay later is a rate arbitrage.
Right.
When, as you said earlier, rates are very, very low, so the cost of capital is low. But it again starts to habituate the consumer experience to, I don't need to pay these users rates to these 3 credit card companies to facilitate a transaction of money that I already have or money that I'm good for. That's the big idea, right? And so when you translate that into Web3 in a good project or a good series of projects, you're not going to need these companies. And so it's going to, I think, eviscerate trillions of dollars of market cap.
Well, not to mention, you also have in between these two, Venmo and Cash App, which are not crypto, but they certainly as brands mean more to young people than Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah, do you think Block, what used to be called Square, is a good pair trade against Visa and MasterCard in this context?
Yeah, I like it.
I think that starts to get closer to the truth. My perspective is you can kind of short anybody who's public, because anybody who's public can really only be public or will go public because they feast off of this artificial 2 or 3% transaction fee. Everybody does. The companies you want to be long are those private companies in crypto that you can read the white papers of, whose protocols have utility, and who's building some element of infrastructure that replaces a traditional business. So as long as you can kind of build those things up, Balaji, for example, had a bunch of tweets this weekend where he was like, he has this idea for a mirror table. What is that? That replaces, cap table management. Right now, why is that important? Well, because it touches all of these really important KYC, AML, investing laws across all these countries in all of these places. It's just a very simple example of where the new company that actually builds that capability of these mirror tables will do so at virtually no cost. And so it'll have a 50-person team. And so they're not going to have offices all over the world. Their cost basis will be, an order or two orders of magnitude cheaper.
I mean, let's face it, Visa and MasterCard became a tax. It took them decades and decades to have that power over folks. But I think a firm does break that. A firm breaks it because the people who are selling then decide, you know what? We'll give a little bit of a discount here to get more people to buy. Go ahead.
They were the classic network effect monopoly business, right? Like they got the small businesses, they got the credit cards, and by extension, the consumers on the network. And ultimately, they created these absolutely locked-in networks. But as with all networks, complacency kind of drives innovation, and this fueled innovation that we're seeing is now starting to figure out ways to not just crack their way into the network, but to replace them with an entirely different model.
Last point on this. This is not one where I think this disruption happens slow. I think it happens swiftly.
Swiftly being 5 to 10 years?
No, like in a year.
Yeah, Chamath's point is really...
So this disruption doesn't take 5 years, it happens in a year. It's funny how Visa just acquired Currency Cloud. They've also acquired Earthport, both RippleNet partners. And Visa's kind of partnering with a lot of companies that are also partnered with Ripple. So it's very interesting to see how this is all taking place. They also mentioned MasterCard, and Bank XRP posted a video where Brooks Entelwise was at a MasterCard event, and the MasterCard guy said that they were working with Ripple. So just what's going on here with Chamath, he's talking about Web3 and how the whole payment system's going to be disrupted. Trillions of dollars are going to be taken, and he also says swiftly, right? It's he's saying look for solid projects that replace traditional businesses. XRP replaces Swift, right? That's one of the biggest banking consortia out there. So India attracts 638 million in crypto blockchain investments in 2021. And why I'm bringing this up is because India has been saying, crypto is banned, crypto is not allowed, crypto is allowed, and they've gone back and forth. But 638 million in crypto to their economy seems like a pretty big deal to me. Now, if you're not aware, iTrustCapital offers crypto IRAs as well as precious metals IRAs. And when you open up an IRA for your retirement, you're able to protect your wealth against capital gains taxes. So be sure to check them out. Be sure to research IRAs and research iTrustCapital. If you use my link, iTrust.capital/Darren, you can get $100 funding reward just by using my link. So be sure to check them out. This is a Mojo Loop presentation.
Earn money. If you're a government, if you're a central bank, or you're a hub operator that's responsible to a central bank, and you're trying to figure out, why would I want to use Mojo Loop? Mojo Loop is a technology that provides a real-time payment network. It's used by a hub operator as the core switching and settlement engine for their RTP network. One of the big things we're hearing from a lot of central banks is they want to own their own infrastructure. The idea of outsourcing your infrastructure tends to be a little bit nerve-wracking. And so the ability to simultaneously own your own payment infrastructure so you have control, but also rely on a significant amount of international expertise that went into building a secure and fast payment infrastructure.
We probably have community members in 65 countries now, 6 continents, hundreds and hundreds of people that are making actual contributions to the code base.
All right, so Mojo Loop is a real-time payments platform that countries can adopt for free. They have to hire, of course, the people to install Mojo Loop, but they essentially get a real-time payments platform for free that's open source. And that's kind of what Chamath was saying in the previous clip is I don't care about the Western world. I want to see it in the developing world. So if you're able to get a whole real-time payments platform that's works, and you're able to get it for free, we'll see these emerging markets, developing nations able to use Mojo Loop. And Mojo Loop, of course, uses Interledger Protocol. The guy speaking was from Modus Box, which is also a Mojo Loop partner that uses Mojo Loop and, of course, Interledger. Now, when I went on their main page, I tried finding any links to Ripple or anything to XRP, which I couldn't find. But when I searched Google, I found this Mojo's. The URL says FinTech Partnership /Ripple, and then this page describes Ripple. So they're in the directory, they're in the FinTech Partnership directory, but there's no way to get to it through the main page. So I found that pretty interesting. And here it is, the Modus Box FinTech Partnerships Ripple, and then it shows up here, but not on the main page. Now this is Perry Ann Boring.
I think we're going to see at least one major crypto trading platform going public following Coinbase. There may be more than that. I also think from the regulatory side, we're here in the US, we're going to see a lot of activity from the SEC that is going to impact how companies can operate in the space under the SEC's jurisdiction or not. I do think we will see a meeting of the trading platforms in the SEC to discuss where they may fit in the future oversight of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Another thing that we expect to see is more of President Biden's nominees across the regulatory agencies get confirmed. There's still a number of vacancies across the federal government. And once you start seeing more people confirmed, particularly in those chair roles, you will start seeing other agencies start to assert their jurisdiction over the digital asset space. And I think we're going to see more turf wars across the federal government. The agency.
All right, so there's a lot of chairs that haven't been filled, right? President Biden elected certain chairs, and they just haven't sat yet. So we're going to see turf wars between the federal government agencies over digital assets. So I found that pretty interesting. The other part is she says the exchanges are going to meet with the SEC at one point to figure out the exchange's roles with the SEC. Now, she also said that an exchange is probably going to go public. My guess is it's FTX. So I thought that was interesting.
About tax and more tax revenue. As more people are selling their crypto and taking gains, you're going to see more tax revenue come in as well. In the 2017 tax year, there was $100 billion worth of taxes paid in capital gains. And 25% of that, or $25 billion of cap gains paid in 2027 came from crypto. It's estimated that there's about 1 trillion of unrealized crypto gains today. And that would be about another $200 billion of potential revenue for the IRS. So I also think we're going to see a very successful and thriving crypto ecosystem in the US, and that's going to fuel a huge amount of the IRS's revenue going into next year, and it will continue to trend in that direction as this industry continues to grow and expand.
So that's some significant numbers, right? There's $250 billion that came from the 2017 boom in crypto. So the U.S. government's $30 trillion in debt. They need tax revenue, and crypto is a source of tax revenue. All they have to do is give the rules of the road, and everyone's happy. This is Hester Peirce.
What we were talking about earlier, which is that Chair Gensler has said he wants to see platforms registering with us, and so maybe that's what it takes for a spot product to get approved.
All right, so that's what Perry Ann Boring was saying, is that the exchanges are going to probably meet with the SEC and discuss their rules, and that's what Hester Peirce was saying, is that the exchanges will figure out the rules for a spot ETF, right? There needs to be no market manipulation. There needs to be registrations with the SEC. So I think that's what we're waiting for, is for all the exchanges to get with the SEC. Now, Gensler just appointed Corey Freyer, which was working for the U.S. Senate Committee, Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs for Chairman Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown is anti-crypto, so this is not good news. So I just want to keep that on everyone's radar. This is Naveen Gupta, and I found this video on Vimeo, which I don't think anyone has posted. So I found this pretty interesting.
Paradigm with blockchain to say what does the bank of the future look like, right? If you look at my personal view, there's a possibility in a short span of time, somebody will present to the Fed to say, here's a bunch of smart contracts. Can you give this a license? Can you give this a banking license? Because the banking license doesn't need to be people, it doesn't need to be buildings. Fundamentally, it's the mathematical logic, algorithm, or the risk management architecture that defines what a bank is. Right? So this could be, so a bunch of you in the room could create a bank, which is essentially just a computer code, and then say, why can't it get a banking license? Why it has to be in a human's buildings, IP, and everything else.
So this was kind of going back to what Chamath was saying about the whole banking system's going to be replaced. And Naveen was saying that, a series of smart contracts now can replace a bank. And that's what I find interesting is just the smart contracts being able to manage risk and reward, right? Just knowing what the risks are and being able to lend just based on risk. So, we're entering a new paradigm of digital banks, and we're going to see at one point what Navin was saying about digital bank of the future. So, of course, this is Myanmar accepts Yuan as official settlement currency for border trade with China. So Myanmar has accepted the Chinese yuan as an official settlement. China and Myanmar, biggest trading partner and its largest source of foreign investment, will provide a stable source for Myanmar banks to access the yuan. And ICBC is the first Chinese commercial bank to operate in Myanmar. ICBC is this huge bank, probably one of the biggest banks on the planet, that is located in China. It's China-owned. So China's central bank, the People's Bank of China, has signed currency swap deals with central banks of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and Laos. There are successful examples of how the yuan's internationalization has cemented bilateral trade connection and boosted local economic development. So this is China's bid for digital yuan sphere raises red flags at the G7. So financial chiefs from the group of 7 major economies will discuss the rules for digital currencies issued by central banks, hoping to bring China's digital yuan into an international regulatory framework. Now, Meng Lu is former Ripple and ICBC. This is the only link I could find between Ripple and ICBC. So, Myanmar says to pilot accepting renminbi as a settlement currency. So, Myanmar's military government said on Wednesday it would pilot accepting renminbi as an official settlement currency for cross-border trade, and plan to restart several development projects with its large neighbor, China. Now, if you remember the economic hitman, this is something that he talks about is
holding a huge debt. And it's such a huge debt they can't possibly repay it. So at some point, the economic hitmen go back and say, you owe us a lot of money, you can't repay your debts, so give us a pound of flesh. Sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Vote with us on the next critical United Nations vote, or send troops in support of ours to someplace in the world, like Iraq. And in that way, we've created this empire. On the few occasions when we economic hitmen fail, as I described in Secret History of the American Empire, what happened to me with Jaime Roldos, the president of Panama, and president of Ecuador, and Omar Torrijos, the president of Panama, I failed with both of these men. I was not able to corrupt them. In this corruption, incidentally, my job, everything I did was legal. It shouldn't be, but the forms of corruption we use are totally legal, so I wasn't doing illegal activities. When I failed to bring them around, to get them to accept these loans, to get them to put their countries into servitude, Then I knew that standing right behind me were what we call the jackals. And these are people who overthrow governments or assassinate their leaders. And both Jaime Roldos of Ecuador and Omar Torrijos of Panama were assassinated by CIA-sponsored jackals because I failed to corrupt them.
All right, so Myanmar's shadow government declares stablecoin USDT as an official currency. So just following the line with John Perkins was saying, this. How did this come about? The shadow government now accepting U.S. dollars, right? And this is essentially what USDT is doing, right? Everything's pegged to the dollar in crypto. So the dollar has become the reserve currency of crypto now too. So it used to be Bitcoin, but USDT came out of nowhere and just kind of pegged everything to dollars. And there's a lot of Tether FUD that they're printing money, and this is some Ponzi, right? But I found this Medium article. It says Deltec, the roots of Tether, house bank lies in the history of Wall Street. So I'm just going to read this excerpt. I'm going to put this in the link in the description below so everyone can read this. He's done a really good job in vetting out Deltec and Tether. But in its distant past, what is now Deltec and Trust and its group of companies were part of one of the most powerful Wall Street financial entities in terms of relationship capitalism true of the business community. The current Deltec Bank and Trust is just a spin-off of a group of companies led by a handful of financiers, businessmen, entrepreneurs, and bankers who, since the 1930s and then from the second half of the last century, have literally written the history of Wall Street and finance. So I found that pretty interesting. This is the author's LinkedIn, and you can see he's a freelance investigative journalist. So getting back to China and Myanmar, Siam Commercial Bank, right? Remember the countries that were listed in the previous article. It says to expand Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam for the RippleNet integration. So this is for Ripple's cross-border payments. Siam's in Myanmar, as well as CIMB is also in Myanmar, and they're also Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. So Ripple's expanding to there too. So I hope you guys found this video interesting. Please tell me what you think in the comments below. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.